Welcome into Journey to the New Earth. I'm Kimberly, and I'm so glad you're here today. I'm excited to be joined by the fabulous Max Lowen. I think, Max, this is your third time here on the
Yes.
channel. I love our conversations together, and today it's especially important because we're going to be talking about the Matrix. And Max is actually doing a seminar this coming Saturday on unplugging from the matrix. And I really want to kind of do a little bit of an appetizer today in this video so that you will be encouraged to go over and join the seminar, because I have taken Max's seminars in the past. I've taken one of her seminars. It's extremely enlightening, very well put together. And even though I felt like I knew kind of what the program was on the planet, I learned so much. So I really want to encourage you to stick around for the conversation today. I've got lots of great questions. I can't wait for Max to answer them. And join the seminar on Saturday. You will learn so much and become so empowered. And I feel like that's one of the things that we need to focus on right now as a collective, is really stepping into our power and saying no and deciding where we want the planet to go.
Yeah.
So, Max, before we get started, for those who haven't seen your channel or been to your website, unbroken.global, tell us a little bit about your background, and then I'll launch in with the plethora of questions I have about unplugging from the matrix.
Yeah. Thank you. It's always good to be here. I love our conversations as well. So briefly, I started Unbroken.global, and I chose that name because if we're born into this matrix, into this reality, we're traumatized, and it's just a continuum. It's like, how traumatized or not? But we can unbreak ourselves. We can put ourselves back together. And it's kind of the shamanic journey. When you go through a lot and then you heal and you recover, you actually become a more powerful version of yourself. So as a human collective, we've done this dance with the dark, but once we heal and recover and free our minds and step out of it, we're going to retain our beauty and childlike creativity that we have as humans, but we're going to be wise. We're going to have learned from this dark experience, and we're going to elevate ourselves to a higher level. So, that's what I've tried to do. I think I've done pretty successfully with my life. I incarnated, I've had really dark experiences. I've survived satanic ritual abuse, torture. I've been trafficked, mainly out of the Vatican. So I expose them a lot as the Luciferian entity that they are, and their role in the global cult. So because of the way I grew up, I've always been aware that a global cult of satanic pedophile psychopaths kind of are at the top positions of the planet and kind of run the show. So I got out after 18 years. I did my healing work. I got 3 degrees in psychology. I help other people recover from trauma and complex trauma, like the kind I've been through. And so it's kind of been my journey. I feel that I chose to incarnate in the life I did because we can't interfere from outside of this reality. The benign people that there can be help, but it can't be direct interference. So a lot of us incarnated here, sometimes behind enemy lines, in order to then do what our mission is as it unfolds. And I think my mission and yours, there's a big similarity in that we're here to educate people, to speak the truth, because the truth is universal, it's eternal, and it's objective. And that's something that's been, we've been mind controlled out of that. And that's why we're in the pickle we're in, because we've been dumbed down. But we are so powerful, and our time is now. And that's why I'm doing the seminar, not only to help people unplug from the wallpaper programs that are the basic ones that we don't even know we have, but also to talk about how we move forward, because as their satanic structure goes down, which it is, it's now our time to step in and co-create the new earth.
Yeah, very good. For those who are kind of newer to the concept of the control system, of the matrix, of the deep state, maybe they've heard it, bantered around here or there, but don't really understand what the whole system is built on. And I actually saw an Instagram post from you. If you're not following Max on Instagram, go do that. She does great little blurbs on there with good information. It's Unbroken on Instagram. You talked about how there is an overlay on the planet. So if you could kind of start from the very basics of what is the matrix and who is behind the matrix and why are they here?
Sure. So there is a creator, right? And so everything that has been created that's organic and that's infused with that life force, as we are, the dark is parasitic by nature. They've been severed from that life force, from that creator. So they, in order to create, they can't create anything new like on a blank sheet of paper. They have to piggyback on what's already here. So, there's a longer story of our true history and what happened that I'm actually going to do a seminar on next. But the short version is kind of like the story in the Bible of Lucifer kind of splitting from the creator and wanting to be the creator himself, wanting to be in charge. There's a truth in that story. So the dark has taken over this planet and others, but this one is a very significant one because what happens here ripples through the multiverse. Now, how have they taken it over? Well, they can't create anything. So what they've done is they've overlaid, that's why we're in a matrix, it's a simulation. So they've overlaid this simulation, this matrix over the organic reality. And who's running it, you could call it Lucifer, which is a real entity, but who's in charge is a dark AI. So if you think of the creator, source, God as organic, as this light, this life force, then obviously the dark version of that is going to be artificial. See? So it's a dark AI that has been running the dark show here on Earth. So everything has been overlaid, but what's happening now is this matrix and this simulation, it's glitching, it's falling apart. So one thing they've done to keep us in it, so the other thing to say is because they're parasitic and they don't have their own life force energy, they've fueled this matrix, they've kept it going. It takes a lot of energy from stealing our energy, looshing our energy and the planet herself's energy. So I'll stop there for a sec, but so they need us to power it. And that's why when we unplug more and more, oops, it's not working so well.
Yeah. So let's talk about the they. Who's the they? That's what I hear a lot. Who's the they? Who's behind it? Clearly, there are dark forces off planet.
Yes.
But there are also humans or hybrids or maybe even off-planet beings that have holographically presented themselves as human that are part of this agenda. Can you speak to that? For instance, I saw Del Bigtree this morning say that when he is around Anthony Fauci, he gets such a feeling of dark. So can you talk about how the dark force can actually recruit Earth humans to work for their ends and goals?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm going to do a seminar on this, but the brief version is this race, this dark race, came here to this planet, and they were perceived as gods by the existing hominids because they were very advanced technologically, and they came in spacecraft. So when I look at, for example, religious art, and you see like God in a cloud with all these lights coming, I mean, that's a spaceship, okay? So why is it in the sky? Because they came from the sky. Okay. So they were big. They were like 12 feet tall. Why are all the doors in cathedrals in Europe so tall? There's a human here and the door's like up here because they weren't made originally for us, right? So this race took over the planet, and they took it over pretty easily because they gave a lot of technology and things like agriculture and incredible architecture. They brought a lot to the table, and so but the race of hominids then worshiped them, and so they sort of took, they being of the dark, they took the humans that were here and they made them their slaves. They also have genetically tinkered with us. There have been other versions of us. I think we're about the 7th version. So when you look in the planet and you see these pyramids and you see these excavated cities they're beginning to find, and you see all of this, and they tell us, oh, well, that was made by slaves with pickaxes. Like, no, that was made by advanced technology, including being able to move things with your mind, right? So then the story of Atlantis, like there's been the flood, there's been wipeouts and restarts. In fact, that's what they've been trying to do now, to reset us, right? Because we get too far and too uppity, and then we need to be reset. So that's a little bit of background. And so these beings also, they're very psychopathic. They're very patriarchal. That's what they imported here. There's a lot there. They would, they were freely would rape, and they were very incestuous. So they would marry their sisters, and because it continued their bloodline and their lineage. So they also mated with human women. And then the offspring, I believe that the Greek myths tell this story, because all mythology is actually history, in my opinion. So they, in the Greek mythology, the gods rape the human women, and then they have the demigods. Well, they made this race of mix between them and humans, which are now what we call the bloodline families and the elites. And that they think that they're very special and different and above us because they come from these gods, right? And so they have been, so these gods, these beings have come and gone, but they've left this layer in control. Yeah. And they've always had a hierarchy. And so the thing that these elites don't realize is that they're viewed by the people above them as cattle, just like they view us like cattle. They're useful to these people. So these are the hybrids and the bloodlines and the people. And then there's also not incarnate entities, evil entities that do take on bodies. So if somebody's willing to sell their soul, which is a great cash cow for the dark, soul has a lot of energy, then they can be inhabited by one of these entities. And then they have a body and they can be here on the planet and do stuff. There's all kinds of cloning technology, which has been around probably since the 40s or 50s, where you can bring, entities in. There's some of these other races that can shapeshift. They can mimic enough to appear human. So a lot of survivors have seen people shift and like a reptilian moment. So there's a little bit of everything in the mix there.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that remarkably humans, at least up to this point, the majority has not caught on to.
Right.
And here's the interesting thing, Max, and I can't figure it out. It's the concept of perception. Now, yeah. I studied art in Italy, and I've lived in Italy twice. So I have seen in person the doors. I have seen in person the sculptures where a baby's being sacrificed.
Yeah.
However, it didn't sink in. And it's amazing to me now when I look back, I studied art history, all the representations of the real story were right in front of me. and
Yeah.
right in front of everybody in the class and right in front of the instructor. And yet we somehow didn't integrate it. And I find that so interesting as humans that it was right out, it's been right out in front of us for centuries. Why did we not perceive it? And why are we starting to perceive it now?
Mm. Well, the mind control and the manipulation of our consciousness. But as we're rising in consciousness, we're suddenly able to see more. Now, they've done so much to dumb us down. So, for example, we have this thing kind of in our head, if you go straight in, called the pineal gland, right? It actually has photoreceptors, just like these eyes, but it's kind of interesting because it's deep inside the brain and doesn't look outward or to receive light. Well, it's because it's looking within. That pineal gland is a huge connection to that antenna, to that bigger picture, to the consciousness, to our divinity. And they've done everything to dumb that down. So there's a formula. Here's 4 things that shut that down: fluoride, Wi-Fi, glyphosate, and aluminum. Between the chemtrails, the vaccines, the food, the water, they've got that covered. Now, they know how important this part of our brain is because it's all in Egyptian art everywhere. If you've been to Rome, you've seen the big pine cone sculpture in the Vatican Museum outside. You know, this is a known thing. So they have done everything possible to disconnect us from, that's a form of sight. So most modern humans, that's going to come back online, and then we're going to see even more, like a lot more. But it's all been deliberate, and it's the mind control, because you're right. It's all in plain sight because, as I always say, per universal law, they have to disclose what they're doing because this is a free will planet. So people have said to me, why does God allow this? God is not allowing anything. We are, okay? This is a free will planet and we have a choice. So if we don't say no to the evil things they're doing, like trafficking children, then that's considered implied consent, So it's kind of like why I don't vote anymore. If you vote, you're consenting to that system that is then controlling you. That's your consent, your vote, right? It doesn't matter who you vote for anyway. They put in whoever they want. So we're always consenting to things. Like if they say fluoride is in the toothpaste and you use that toothpaste, well, it's kind of on you not to do the research to find out that fluoride is an industrial waste product. And when people collect it, they wear hazmat suits because it's so toxic. So they will hide. So they have occulted a lot of true information from us, but then at the same time, they put it in front of our eyes. But the mind doesn't see what it doesn't believe to be true, right? So it's a perfectly clever trick to say, well, we've told you, but yet they've obfuscated it at the same time. So as you shed the trauma and heal yourself, as you open your mind and unplug and see, then you can't unsee. And then you see more and more and more and more. And you notice, like you did, like, oh, crap, that's always been there, but I didn't used to know. Well, yeah, that's deliberate. That's been done to us all. And also these creatures, as I call them, because they're very sick puppies, they communicate through symbols. So that's another form but the symbols are there, so it behooves us to learn what they are. Like in my Vatican seminar, which I think I don't know if you've seen that one, but on the Pope's vestments, they have the symbol, the triangle within the triangle, which is a pedophile symbol. Okay, so it behooves you to know because all these corporates have these symbols in their logos and stuff, or even a basic one like the elites in the Hollywood award shows and on the talk shows, they're always talking about pizza. Oh, yeah, I came over and you had the best pizza. I love pizza. Well, pizza's pedophile code for little girl. hot dog is a little boy, right? So you begin as you learn, as you kind of learn their language, they're communicating with each other right in front of our faces, and they're laughing about it because we don't know what they're saying, but it's still out there, right? So that's something that as people wake up more and more, they're going to begin to see more and more of what's already. So nothing's new under the sun. It's been there. It's just
Mhm.
that we're waking up to it now.
Yeah. And one of the things that you said is so true. Once you see it, there's no going back.
No.
There's only going forward, and it almost speeds up over time, catching on, noticing things. I just was up in Oregon recently. I lived there for several months. Max, there was a mountain in this range of mountains, and I looked at that and I said, that's a pyramid with dirt on it. And it's interesting because I was new to the area. It was very easy for me to identify that there's a pyramid underneath there. I mean, the mountain was shaped exactly like a pyramid. That's not how earth works. That's not how dirt works. And yet the people that were from that area didn't see it because they had been so used to being told that's just one of the mountains, you know, in the whole Seven Sisters thing. So
Right.
it's that human perception. So
Yeah, and education. We've been educated so little kids see clearly, and then you tell them, oh, that's a mountain, that's a tree, that's a flower. And then it narrows the idea of what you're seeing. And by the way, before I forget, a lot, like I lived in Ashland, so there was Table Rock in Medford. A lot of these plateau-like mountains are actually ancient trees that were humongous. And so they were cut down, and what's left looks like a mountain.
right. Yeah. I want to take the ritual and the symbolism and the concept that we are an energy source for this force. In other words, they use us to fuel their agenda and to fuel their movement. That's a hard thing to conceptualize. What I want to talk about is the mechanism of action. Because once I understand the mechanism of action, it starts to make more sense to me. And I'm going to bring it down to something that just recently happened. And I get a tiny part of it. I imagine you get a bucket full of it. And that was the Charlie Kirk Memorial.
Mhm.
And I looked at that and I said to myself, that is an energy sucking event. The date of the assassination, you know, that's up for grabs whether, you know, what we saw really happened. But I felt like getting everyone in that arena, I believe it was in the Arizona area, getting everyone in that arena, all those thousands and thousands of people that were all hyped up, really high, supercharged emotional state, that to me looked like a ceremony and not the kind of ceremony we're thinking of. In your mind, was that just another looshing of energy? And if so, how does that work? Like, how do they take the energy and then integrate it and reshape it and reform it for their agenda?
Yeah. Well, so that event was, so that was staged. There was actually a movie that came out years ago, and I now can't remember the title of it, but I think it was Nicolas Cage, and the character he was playing was Charlie Kirkland, okay, who got shot in the neck on the same date that this Charlie Kirk was shot. Okay, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So they plan these things because our reality is staged. It's like a theater production. So, okay, now we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. So that whole thing, so in my opinion, and then I did a little digging on Turning Points, which was the organization he worked for, and he went to college campuses to talk. And a lot of the things he said were great, you know, were wonderful. However, you have to understand that the cult, they have their heroes, they have their good ones that spread some truth, but there's always the control and the twist. So Turning Points turns out is CIA affiliated. So it's probably, in my estimation, one of those organizations that recruits people from college campuses to join, right? And to be operatives. So the whole world is run by operatives. The presidents, the administrators, they're all operative run. So my guess is that Charlie and his wife are operatives. They were probably put together as a couple deliberately, which they do. Like, none of these people marry for love. They're all matched by specific family connections or mission. And so that was a staged shooting. There were a lot of weird things about the shooting that people started to point out, like, wait, it doesn't add up. And then it was heavy with symbology, with the date, with the baseball cap, with the, there were so many factors in it. And so I think he's been whisked away and is having a different life under a different identity somewhere else. Just like Epstein, he never committed suicide or died. So it was all staged to create a certain big emotional reaction, because and one thing is to divide people. So it's left and right. It's like the left are communist haters and they killed this guy. No, the left and the right are both cult operated things that work for the same overlord. So they do this and then they do that. And one side embodies this and then the other side pretends to be anti-deep state. No, that's bullshit. They're all in the same club. So I don't think Charlie Kirk was killed at all. I think it was partly enhanced with holographic tech, which is what they used to simulate airplanes hitting the Twin Towers. No airplanes hit the towers. They were blown up from the inside. They have very, very realistic, advanced holographic technology. They've tested it where they've put out what look like spacecraft in certain areas and let people see it. Well, they're not, it's holographic technology. So I think it was a whole stage thing. And it was designed, number one, to create divide and conquer, but number two, to loosh a ton of energy. So the outrage, the anger, the hatred, that's a frequency bandwidth that's like a really juicy steak to them. They just eat that up. But they also loosh positive energy, by the way, and they can transform it into something dark. Because again, they're parasitic, so they take our energy. So that would have generated globally, as it did, a lot of energy, and they suck it up. And it's the same energy that, for example, they would loosh off a football game or a soccer game when people are in a stadium, and it's the shape. It's a vortex. So they suck it up. It's the same energy that they harvest from religious worshiping things. It's like, so it's just an energy siphon, and they siphon it up and then they use it to power this fake matrix reality that we're in. So that was just another one.
It's so funny you should mention that, because that's exactly what I thought when I saw that whole, I just saw clips of it on social media of the memorial or whatever they framed it as. And I thought, that's like all the energy at a professional sports game, which I believe is the only reason professional sports was initiated and built into what it was, is because it's an energy source for that group. How do they actually integrate that energy? I don't understand that.
So we're actually all energy, right? So our eyes take in frequency and it's decoded as color, for example. Our ears take in frequency, it's decoded as sound. Our tongue takes in frequency and it's decoded as taste. When we touch something, we're not actually touching anything solid. It's the magnetic, it's the pushback. It's like a force field that we think this thing is solid. So like, go watch the Matrix movies. They kind of tell that really well in that movie. So everything is energy. We are energy. So they take that and they make that into whatever they want. So we're emitting, if you could see us, and if you some technology like that Carrion photography can see people's auras, and like there's an energy field around us. So they have sort of metaphysical, if you will, technology to suck up all that energy. It's like and they put it in like a battery, like an energetic battery. But everything is energy. So the form that we're in is kind of an illusion, right? And they know that. They convince us everything is material and 3D, but they're operating on all these other dimensions. They know. That's the whole occulted knowledge. Like if we only knew. So we actually can create. We can create. They can't. But we could create, so when Jesus, the being they call Jesus, that I call Yeshua, he was actually a freedom fighter. He was here to help people rise in consciousness and unplug from the matrix. He told people the divine is within you. He was so evolved in his own person that he had an undistorted connection to source energy, and he could channel it in. And so he could make many loaves of bread from one or many fish from one. That's manifestation. We have that ability, actually. It's just a bit dormant in us because of all the poisoning and all the dumbing down, right? So he knew how to use energy for good. He was so evolved. So of course, what did the cult do? See, when something is good, they take it and they invert it and they use it for their own sick purposes. So they took this guy who was who was against Satanism and preaching a message of freedom and how to raise your consciousness, and they made him the god of a church that then flips it and says God is something outside of you. And then it's like, oh, you're small and nothing, and you're born with sin, and you have to pray for your redemption. So they make people feel guilty and powerless and small, when he taught the exact opposite. He was like, you can do what I do. And he never said he was coming back to save anyone. He said the consciousness that he was embodying was going to be what saved us, which is what's happening now, I believe, where a lot of us are embodying that consciousness and rising in it. And that's what shifts this reality, because these parasitic dark people, they use our energy to create the nasty hell on earth reality we see, but it has to be a certain frequency. So there has to be anger and fear. I mean, look at any media which they own. It's fear, 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 So they're creating this frequency bandwidth that they want called survival. Then they economically assassinate us. So we're all in this. But see, when we rise out of that frequency, they can't actually exist. So we're going to create a new earth with our consciousness up here, with love and with creativity and with light. And then we don't have to fight them because they simply cannot exist there. Okay. Mm-hmm. We're the batteries they've been using to fuel this fake matrix. So the more of us that unplug, the faster this thing goes down. But then, see, no one's going to come and save us. No Pleiadians, no Jesus, no Trump. Now it's up to us to go, all right, so what do we want to create? How do we want this out here to look? And that's something I'm going to talk about in my seminar, real practical steps, like what can we do? Because there's a lot we can do. And that's the path forward, not fighting the system, not reforming it. It was designed to do what it's doing. It's working perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it. That's how it was designed. We are going to create a different way forward. And we can. We have it. We have it absolutely within us. So it's just a question of waking up enough and healing enough to be at that level where we do it.
Yeah. I'm watching out in the collective right now a shift in the control grid. And what I am seeing is, people are losing faith in government.
Yeah.
Government is losing power. But then what I'm seeing, and this, I know this is an agenda, and it was very disturbing for me when I started seeing people who I had respected and followed in the alt media take on this new agenda of we are all flawed humans. We're deeply, deeply flawed, but Jesus will save us. The church will save you. Become a Christian, and that's your only way out. And what I'm seeing is that people that I really kind of respected are taking on this whole religious Jesus mantle again. And please, if you're watching, I'm not saying that there is not that frequency, that Jesus, the love frequency, the Yeshua, as Max calls that person. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the agenda that we are powerless, that we are deeply flawed, that humans are somehow less than, is becoming the new mantra. So as the government is losing their grip, the whole church thing is coming up to snare those people in a different way.
Yeah. No, you're right. I'm seeing it as well. And I talk about, that's one of the base, government and religion are one of the base programming that I'm going to talk about and explain in my seminar as well. It's unfortunate because, see, they always take something good and they twist it. So it is, what's good about religion is that you're wanting to connect with the divine. But the twist is that that's something exterior to you and that you're less than it. That's not the case. It's within us. It's what animates us, okay? The love you feel in your heart, the breath you inhale and exhale, the stillness that your mind can achieve, that is God. That is the divine within. As women, we take a soul, we make a body for it in our own body. We, with great pain, push it out. We nurture that being into adulthood. Like, if that's not God, I don't know what is. Like, oh my God, goodness. Like, let's wake up and see who we really are. So that's the trick. The trick is that we don't have that. I believe when I was a child, I knew that I was spying for God. So I incarnated behind the dark curtain, and I was saying, okay, what I was seeing was being transmitted. We are all, how does God exist in a material reality? Through us, through each of our brains and each of our eyes. We're all aspects of that oneness. And everybody says we're all one. Yes, we are, but we're individual and we're also one. We're both, right? Everything is, every tree, every animal, water itself has been shown to imprint messages, to alter its shape based on love frequency or hate frequency. This is all the divine. Everything is the divine. So to package it as some external thing that on your knees, whipping yourself on your back, you might hope to achieve goodness enough to be forgiven or no, that's bull. That's okay. A lot of the God stuff in the Bible, and I know people are going to get really offended and upset about this, but is actually referring to Satan. Okay, the Lord demands sacrifice of your firstborn, the wrathful and punishing God. No, that's not the creator. Okay, the Bible was a political tool. It was created in 325, I think. I might be getting the date wrong, but Emperor Constantine commissioned a bunch of men to come together to put these different books together to create this thing called the Bible to help him unify the then kind of fragmenting Roman Empire. Okay, Jesus's teachings were actually omitted from this body of work because he's saying things they don't want people to follow. Okay, so again, there's this wanting to connect to the divine, and within religious communities, it's wonderful that people get together and they help each other and they feed the hungry. That's great. But this is a program that disempowers you and makes you feel and waiting to be saved. But that's not how we're going to go forward. We can't wait for, no one's going to come and save us. That's the trap. And the alt media, if you don't know, is mainly CIA agents. It was created, they anticipate people waking up to higher levels of consciousness. So they have this layer ready. You wake up from mainstream, okay, now you're at the alt media ceiling, right? And they say a lot of truth because you already know it. So they say it to reel you in, and then they tell you some obfuscation like, oh, the white hats are coming, the good military. There is no good military. That's all part of the cult. There are good people that go into that organization not knowing what it is. But so it's all layers and layers to trap us and keep us. They're scared to death that we're going to go forward because it's kind of like, so as above, so below. So they're parasites. And I think the parasites that we have in our body are maybe an alien physical manifestation of these creatures. And so we need to do a parasite cleanse. Okay. They need us. We don't need them. We're going to be better without them. So all their entities, religion, government, media, all of it needs to go. And you're right. People are losing faith, rightfully so. But see, here's the thing. People don't want to do the hard work, Kimberly. They don't want to look at their shadow. They don't want to do their trauma work. They don't want to open their minds to truths that might contradict what they previously believed. And it takes them out of their comfort zone. If you start to go, oh, oh, Max, you were ritually abused. You were, raped by people high up in the Vatican. No, I don't want to believe that because that shatters my comfortable illusion of what this is. And I'm sorry. But you need to know what it really is if there's any hope of moving away from that into something different. No child deserves to be raped or sacrificed or tortured, and too many millions and millions every year are. Okay, so that's a fact. And it's not a comfortable fact because now you're like, oh, how am I? Because we have to acknowledge, how are we supporting this system? So there's a lot of hard work to be done to be a conscious individual, and people don't want to be uncomfortable and do the hard work, which is why it's so easy for the Satanists to, kind of bribe us into this complacency. And the Savior program's a biggie. Everyone wants to be saved. Well, I'd love to be saved too, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I want to move right now into the concept of how powerful we are. Because I think if more people understood the incredible power of us, our energy system, everything we have online, and I'm gonna kind of open up the conversation, Max, with a story about you that I watched in another video you did. I believe it was with Penny Kelly. It was towards the end of your involvement in the satanic ritual abuse. And you were with your sister, and whoever was running you or operating you wanted to take you to yet another satanic ritual. And you said in this interview or this conversation with Penny, you said, they trained me as a weapon and I turned that on them. And when you were saying no to whoever these people were, you said that you saw a kind of a little dust devil kick up from your energy, and they started levitating off the ground as a result of you focusing your energy, telling them that's not happening anymore. This is done. And I connected so much with your absolute intention and decision that's not happening. So talk to us a little bit about how that was built up in you, and the fact that that's within all of us. Yeah. We have that power. So that power, if we understood even a fraction of it, would completely eliminate that need for a savior, because we would realize we're the savior.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying a lot of indigenous cultures work with the elements, right? They do rain dances and then it rains. They are in communication with nature, with water, with fire, with air. And so we have that ability. And many of us children who have gone through MK Ultra programming have been trained to work with elements such as, so I was working with air. I was fed up. So the anger, the air element was responding to my anger and created basically a little tornado, and it lifted him off the ground. And it was because I just got to a point where I snapped and I was like, that's it. Enough. You're not going to do one more thing. And the trigger was that they had hung my sister upside down from a tree. It was another Jesus ritual. I was supposed to carry this huge cross on this outdoor area where there was sort of an abandoned stone house. And so that thing that they trained me for, I then used against them. So I'm going to give an example because they tell you the truth in movies. So just recently, somebody's been bugging me for years to watch Stranger Things. So I decided, okay, I'm going to watch this series. So I've been watching it. That girl, 11, she was trained in a lab, underground, experimentally. They do this. This is real to children. And she and other children were trained in all these abilities because we have them. And they were trained fully in these children. And this girl, at some point, she was done, and she, with her abilities, killed everyone and got away, right? Well, it's real. So she exhibits like telekinesis. She can move energy with her mind, and so she can push someone with her mind and they can hit a wall. She can remote view. So she puts this blindfold on, and then she can see where people are and what they're saying. That's all real. We all have this ability inherent in us. They have trained it into small children to then use for ill, to go out into the world to do terrible things with these abilities. But, one that has come back really pretty robustly for me is telepathy. So that doesn't mean I'm reading someone's mind, but I just know. I read, like the other day I said something to somebody and they didn't say anything, but I could feel that what I said triggered them because I felt they went, they had a recoil. They didn't show it, but I knew, and that gave me information. I was like, oh, that's triggering for them. So I can perceive when I'm talking to someone and they're having a reaction. I know exactly what their reaction is. And then I go, oh crap, I overstepped, or, it's very useful. You can tell who people are. You can tell. Animals can do this. A dog or a cat knows when a person's not good and abusive, and they know when a person is loving and they run to them. We have this organic in all of us, okay? That it's just been dumbed out of us. We can move things with our minds. We can know what the other person is feeling and thinking, not the stream of mental thoughts, but know what's going on with them energetically, because it's all energy, right? We can work with the elements. When I was in Oregon, I used to live there too. There was a night that it was so windy that it was scary. And the house I lived in was surrounded by trees, and the tree was thumping on the roof. And I connected with the air, with the wind. And I said, it's too much. Like, can you just tone it down a little bit? Like, this is harmful. And within 2 minutes, it toned down. We have this ability to communicate with all the elements. We can shapeshift. Okay, we'd have to go through some training, but we can do that. There's all these psychic abilities. Like the one that I have the most is what they call claircognizance, where things just drop in and I know. Some people see, some people hear. You know, you can pick up anything with your body. That whole concept of muscle testing, you know, where you ask your body, like a friend taught me this, and I was like, oh, I should know this. There was a supplement. She said, put it at your solar plexus, and then she does the forward and backward, and ask your body, like, do I need 10 drops of this? And then if it's yes, you go forward. And your body really does, it knows, has the wisdom, and it tells you. So it's so many layers of connecting to these abilities that we all have. And that's why and we can create, right? So the trick is to visualize and feel that creation, to, you know, do something in the 3D towards it, and to know that it is so. So it's like we draw that future thing, which time is not what they teach us. It comes into our timeline. So we could, just like Yeshua did, I mean, you wouldn't even have to cook your dinner. You could just manifest it fully cooked on the table, right? So then when manifestation is clear, you don't need money. Money is a control. Money is a slavery system. What if you don't need that, right? And what if you're not mentally captured by this dark idea that some of us are better than others, or this idea that if I have this, then it means that you're going to lack it? What if we can all have everything we need, including perfect health? Because health is balance. It's when your system is balanced, it's the natural state, okay? But then, of course, and I talk about this in the seminar too, like Louis Pasteur, he was a Freemason, he was a Satanist, and he came out with this idea of germs. Well, that's a nice little psyop. Ooh, this boogeyman out here that's going to invade your body and make you sick. And so that's the whole basis for Big Pharma, right? But actually, it's terrain theory. It's that when you're out of balance, when your body's out of balance, it self-heals. So if you have diarrhea, that's your body trying to eliminate something that's not good, or you throw up. You shouldn't stop that. You should allow that process. Same with a cold, same with a fever, right? So your body's always trying to balance itself out. And just like a garbage dump will attract cockroaches, if you are a garbage dump, there will be microbes and scavengers in you that are actually doing you a favor because they're eating the garbage. But then that's considered a virus, and so the whole thing, it's such a brainwashing mechanism, right? But our bodies are self-healing. My body has always been self-healing. I think I came in with that active so that I could survive. So whatever they would do, my body would repair itself. And it still does. I basically never get sick. I heal very quickly from anything. That's all who we are, all of it, and more, right? So that's our true selves. The model they've sold us it's like a car that they've stripped down and taken all the bells and whistles off. And that's just what they want us to believe. Because if we know and we step into that, they're done. They're done. Already done. They're already done. It's just a matter of time.
And when this understanding really hits home inside of you, you realize how much more magical and exciting and full of potential life on this planet really is. It's so much better than the story we've been told. And we are so much more fascinating and interesting and dynamic than what we've been told. So it's nothing but potential as we step into, I don't know, this new journey we're on, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's happening now. I'm telling you, we're going to see some things go down. Probably governments next.
Yeah, but we can't. I'm sure that there are a lot of us, I'm among them, can't wait.
Can't wait.
Yep. Yeah. So Max, tell us again about the seminar. It's this Saturday. You guys, I have it listed in the description box down below. I'm going to be there. tell us about the seminar a little bit. And I think give us the times, just Pacific and Eastern. I don't remember all of them.
It's at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is 4 p.m. Eastern. It's 8 a.m. in Australia the next day on Sunday morning, because I have a lot of people from Australia who join. And then I believe it's 10 o'clock p.m. in Europe. So it's a little late, but still doable. Yeah. I try and always schedule them so that all time zones can participate if possible. And yeah, I'm going to talk about how to unplug from the programming. There's some basic programming that we don't even know is programming, because we're also programmed. How's that for a mouthful?
You don't know you're programmed because you're programmed.
But also really focusing on what are we going to do to move forward? Because we have this, right? I'm very optimistic. Is it going to require some effort? Yes. But we're going to this new earth, or some of us are going to this new earth. We do have a choice. Some will not want to go, right? But for those of us that are going, we need, as their structures come down, we need to have something else there in its place. And we've already, in many ways, begun these new ways of doing everything, eating, educating, all of it, medicine, healing. So it's just really kind of talking to people about the practical things that we can do moving forward, and also how to not comply so that we can make these things go down faster. Yeah. Because that's what keeps it going, is us, actually.
Us feeding the system. Yeah. Yep. Pushing money away, giving all our energy away.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, so people can just go to my website, and then it's under classes, and they'll find where to sign up there. And you can still sign up because there's still tomorrow and even Saturday morning. So
yeah. And it's linked down below, guys. You can just click on that link and go over there. Max, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back again. I just always have more. Every time we talk, I have more questions. So I would love to have you back again if that works.
Of course. It's always fun to be here. So thank you.
And everyone, stop by unbroken.global. That's Max's website. You can also follow her on Instagram, which is well worth it, because it's just these little daily reminders of the reality of who we are, which is so much cooler than what we've been told. So Max, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I'll see you next time around. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye, everyone.